Yo, what's up, YouTube? Part two, or rather, second video as I'm back. And, I mentioned in the last video, watch that real quick. No, just kidding, it's not useful. But, um, I mentioned I was sticking to Viper, but I wanted to employ a more structured approach towards the improvement of my gameplay. Because I feel like there are a lot of shortcomings in it that I'm not able to readily fix in the ways I've kind of tried. I find myself just kind of set in my kind of autopilot ways because I'm very busy with university and stuff, so I don't always have that kind of mental energy to kind of play the game and also think on the fly on what to do to kind of improve myself, right? There's that decision fatigue. Let's like, look it up if you're interested. It is a real phenomenon, and I feel like it's definitely gotten to me in a sense. Like it's a real thing. I do feel it, especially nowadays. And what to get to the point, what are the main issues, right? So first things first, I want to kind of talk about what are the issues I've kind of identified with my gameplay that I kind of want to fix, and why do I find them so difficult to fix. So the first thing, which is kind of, there was kind of a story behind getting to this point, and besides the whole, over the months, obviously, I've kind of identified multiple times, and I kind of try to have a more structured approach, but every time I just kind of abandon it immediately. But very recently, I was on stream, like, no, I was on stream. I guess Broski was kind of doing that replay review thing, and I did get to upload my replay. Now, to be fair, it wasn't the best of replay. It was a Viper mirror, like 1 month after she released, so there wasn't much information. And, I didn't really double check my gameplay and that thing, so there wasn't really much to say. But there was one thing that kind of stuck to me, which I had known at the time. Obviously, it's not that much of a revelation. It wasn't like a eureka moment, but it was something more of the on the lines of like I'm not considering what information I'm revealing to the opponent, right? In that situation, for example, I had done this on Viper against my opponent every single time I got the BK, I would always do the kicks follow up, right, for the plus frames. And to me, obviously in the match, always seemed like a good option. And even up until then, I was most of the time you just consider what the opponent does, but you never really realize what information you give the opponent, right? And so that was kind of a wake-up call. But at the same time, I kind of realized, I myself struggle at identifying the information and like kind of collecting, metabolizing, and kind of utilizing the information the opponent gives me to alter my game plan, right? Adapting to the opponent. I struggle with that a lot. And so, this kind of was a wake up call because the part of adapting to your opponent is kind of precedes in a sense in a certain way, at least in my head, the act of you controlling what information you reveal to the opponent, right? That's kind of the thing I thought of. Now, obviously, might not be the way for you, but anyway. And I've always struggled to deal with the opponent, and I've following this kind of thought process, I was like, the big thing is I don't remember what happens in a round. That was the first step of my kind of mental journey. I struggle to remember what happens. Oftentimes, especially deep in the ranked build queue, I can find myself complaining about something, and literally mid rant, like 5 seconds in into the rant, I would not even be able to tell you what I'm complaining about. Like full on blank head, zero idea. I'm literally upset, and that anger is gonna make me play worse for something that I don't even remember. And it's not a way to say like, oh, the reason why I was upset is kind of vain, it was kind of useless. It might be actually something that is reasonable. I mean, being upset at a video game, as reasonable as that may be to you. Obviously, I care about playing the video game. Um, but the thing is, right, even for something that invokes such a strong emotion, I struggle to remember. So imagine for stuff that doesn't, right? I mean, you get numb to someone, for example, ODPing on Wake Up, right? And when that stuff, you get numb and you don't remember it, people can just abuse that in the sense that, for example, I can play a guy that does 3 of the 4 times he ODPs on Wake Up, and I keep not baiting, right? My gameplay is very, it kind of varies day to day, not in a conscious way, not in an intentional way. It just kind of whatever I feel like doing that day, right? It's not very intentional. It's not very conscious. And I noticed, oh, I kind of have a short-term memory problem. I don't know. I don't even use social media all that much. If you want to get into the more conspiratorial stuff about, short attention span, I'm not even all that much on social media. Like, actually, honest to God. And yeah, I feel it slipping, man. I feel like that kind of brain fog, and it's kind of weird because I've never had this problem, and especially short-term memory for like school and university stuff never been an issue. So I just kind of find myself kind of baffled at that. So I was kind of trying to approach that problem by solving it. I asked a couple people on a Discord. They were like, okay, for each match, for each set, maybe for each round, for each game, depends on what level you're at. Try to remember one interaction that you kind of found interesting, right? So I tried to do that 1 day, 2 days. It wasn't working out too well, right? I could remember one, but it felt too easy in the sense that it felt like it was kind of arbitrary, right? Like you just remember one interaction, but it felt kind of aimless because it was like, I mean, I can remember a interaction. I would remember the last interaction that happened, or maybe that one big thing, like that one combo drop, or like maybe I could have done a better combo. Maybe if I hadn't whiffed the punish, like missed the punish, I would have killed them, right? It just felt kind of purposeless. So I thought a bit more and explored a couple options, and I finally came to one resolution. Actually, there was a second thing. So another thing I was trying to do is instead of kind of choosing any interaction that kind of seemed interesting, I was like, okay, let me try and play against Simpson and remember, for example, okay, who gets the first knockdown, who gets corner control, if you don't keep corner control for the entire round, which usually means you just get throw looped, how do you lose corner control? And in the sense of who gets corner control, like how do you gain said corner control? Usually on the first knockdown, if they use driver, you kind of get in the corner, depending on the character. But that was kind of the idea, right? And the thing is, I was playing against Simpson. I was like, okay, let me just remember this. I could, for the life of me, not do that. I even tried to practice, for example, watching games of other people, right? For example, SFLUS was running the last couple of days. I was like trying maybe, I'm just gonna pay attention to this. It was really difficult for me. So I had to take a step back and be like, okay, maybe remembering right during the match is still too much for me. So what I then kind of went on to, and this is the final thing, what I'm gonna try and do, at least for a week or two, is kind of a different approach, right? What the previous attempt kind of instilled in me is kind of having this awareness of these turning points. That's what I call them. For example, when you get a knockdown, right? That's important. And when the kind of offensive advantage changes, right? Like you got them in the corner, you got let them say they jump out and just let them jump out, right? Or maybe they even have an anti-air, right? They can beat your anti-air, and you get punished because of that. Now, in some situations, it's kind of inevitable, but in others, you have the advantage. You should work to keep said advantage. That is a turning point. I mean, regardless if it was, a guess that you were kind of forced into, uh, it is still a turning point. So that is important to kind of be conscious of that. So whilst I can't necessarily, I'm not able to do it in a match yet, The idea is that now what I do is I play a set and then I replay a review, right? And then I kind of keep track of these turning points, right? In particular, what mistakes I make, right? Because there's no point in really writing, oh, you guessed wrong, whatever. Like they ODDP'd or like, I mean, okay, too bad, right? Or for example, you go for the throw and they backdash and they back throw you. Like, I mean, it happens, right? You guess wrong. That's not a mistake. That's not a mistake. That's just a guess, a bad guess. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking now. So for the full round down, what I'm gonna be doing for the next, I don't know, week at least, at minimum, because today is a Monday, right? So at minimum for this week, I'm gonna be just playing sets, very few apparently, because there's not much time. Um, then after every set, I take notes and I just write them down. And here I can show you the notes I took for today. And these were 4 sets, alright? And I have 88 lines of notes. Now, a lot of these are not necessarily useful in and of themselves. For example, check drivers really late. Okay, I mean, right? But that's not the point, right? The point of this is to kind of observe trends and being conscious of these trends. Because the thing is, if like that's my hypothesis, kind of my conjecture, is that the more I'm exposed to these mistakes, right, even if they're not big mistakes, right, like you check into your driver's really late. I mean, okay, this is more relative, but for example, I don't know. I mean, these are pretty massive mistakes. Like bad confirm on a counter hit driver's forward heavy kick, right? Like I did a combo with without the like I did the combos if I only hit it without the counter hit. With the counter hit, you can do an optimization, get more damage, spend less drive. That's kind of the important part. And that's kind of one thing. That's like a minor thing. Like okay, you could have improved that, but it doesn't matter. But the big things, you know, the stuff that can lead to a loss or a shift in momentum, right? Being exposed to it a lot, especially in these notes, and then my plan is to like feed this to an LLM, kind of tell me, yo, what are kind of the trends you see, and then I have like the texts, the text files, I have them dated, so I can probably like ask to adjust for like the dates. The most recent one is the most relevant and stuff like that. I don't know how it's gonna work. It's probably gonna work out in one way or another. But the point is, that if I get my conjecture returning to that, I'm very scatterbrained. My conjecture is that, oopsie, when I get exposed to this stuff textually, and when I read it out, and when I see it, I'll be able to better recognize it during the match. That is what is important. What I'm training here is obviously improving this stuff. For example, I did feed today's thing to an LLM, and it told me, the biggest trend today was that I wasn't confirming counter hits, or like on interrupts, right? Like I would do an interrupt jab, and I wouldn't confirm it ever. And Viper does get a knockdown from a counter hit jab. Meterless too. She gets it. No. She gets this. Pretty good. Now she doesn't get a meaty throw, but I mean she can probably do something with the drive rush or whatever. I mean she has options, right? But point is, I wasn't confirming this, which is an issue, right? It's not that big of a deal. It's not the biggest of the problems, but it is something to tackle. And, you know, so you do have the option of like having like concrete things you want to kind of tackle to slowly improve your gameplay. But the biggest thing, the reason why I'm doing this, is to kind of expose myself to all these problems, all these mistakes that I do, so I can better identify them in the game, especially if they end up affecting the game in a way so that I can adapt better to the game, to the current match. That's kind of the idea. The thing I struggle with is adaptation, not just to the opponent, which this probably doesn't take too much into account because again, this is does not include guesses, and guessing is a big adaptation of the opponent, like being able to guess what they do on wake up, right? So that isn't too kind of inducive to that. But the idea here, again, is still being able to kind of adapt to the situation and adapt to the mistakes that you yourself do. And this is useful at my gameplay level because at my gameplay level, it is still very much a player matchup story. It's a story of whose gameplay styles are compatible. When I play someone like we're both the same rank. I think I'm high master right now. I don't know. I haven't looked up my MR in a couple days at this point. And we could both be at our real MR, but my gameplay style is very geared towards whiff punishing and being kind of more passive in some situations. While this opponent, maybe it's a DJ, they just like pressing buttons, right? And it's a bad thing for him because it's a in a player matchup thing, he just doesn't fit well with me. Like I am able to punish his stuff, whereas someone else who's maybe more aggressive, right? They might be me, but they might get beaten by this guy who's just going balls to the walls as with DJ, or as an example, like just to have something more concrete, right? So being able to kind of adapt to what you're doing and try to be more intentionate. That's kind of the point of this. So yeah, and that's it pretty much. So to recap briefly, since I've been yapping for way too long, I mean I'm just gonna upload this uncut. If you watch it again, I mean, too bad. But yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play very few sets, just take the notes of the mistakes I do. Not so much about the guesses, but just in general, like the big momentum shifting mistakes that you can't really attribute to guesses much, if at all, right? Just unforced errors at as the pros say. And yeah, I'm gonna try and discover some trends. Use this both to improve myself slowly. For example, improving the most uh, commonly occurring mistake, but also just in general trying to form an awareness of mistakes that I may do in the match so that I can better remember what happens. Build this kind of, improve my short-term memory in a sense, and improve my adaptation both to the opponent and to like kind of myself, what I am showing the opponent, why I'm doing stuff, and ultimately be intentional with my gameplay. That is kind of the end goal, and obviously being better at the game, but that kind of comes with the territory, right? When you improve all these little aspects, you see yourself improve. And yeah, that's kind of my first video on what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna run this thing for like a week. Hopefully I see some improvements. Maybe a week, maybe two. And probably maybe a bit more than a week. It feels like a week is kind of pussy commitment. But for now, I'll do a week just to kind of have to still, not hard commit. I'm hard committing to Viper for this season, for this particular method. I don't know. I'll have to see. But this is my kind of mind child. It is my ideation in a sense. I mean, obviously, I'm not the first person to come up with this kind of method, but yeah, like I came up with it in my head, obviously with all the inspiration of previous stuff I've seen and heard, but it's not something I directly got from someone in this instance. And hopefully it works out, and hopefully, if you bother watching through this entire video, you'll also learn something from it. And oopsie, wait. And I have the wrong thing. Point being, hopefully, yeah, you can learn. Maybe you also apply this. I'll upload kind of maybe a video in a week, detailing maybe my progress, how I've liked this kind of thing. I'll take this very much like a language learning experience. I've seen a lot of those videos, and yeah, I'll try to take the opportunity to do that, and hopefully it works out. So, if you've watched up until now, I wish you a good night, or good day, evening, whatever. It's night here for me. Goodbye.